Many businesses use a virtual private network, a VPN, so employees can access company resources while away from the office. Pretty typical. But sometimes access requirements get a little more complicated. Like, what if your employees need VPN access to 2 different sites? Can it be done? You bet. You just need a client-to-site VPN and a site-to-site VPN. This configuration will eliminate the need for setting up the client-to-site VPN configuration on both routers. Instead, there will be 2 remote networks. In my example, a home network and an RV34x office network will be used. Are you ready to take on this challenge? Let me get you on your way. In this episode of Cisco Tech Talk, I'll guide you through the configurations needed for a client to connect to 2 different sites using the RV34x router. I'll begin by creating an Ipsec profile. This profile will be used to configure the encryption for the Layer 2 tunneling protocol, Lttp VPN. To create a profile, navigate to the Ipsec profile table and click the plus icon. Enter a profile name. I'll select Auto for the keying mode and IKE version 1 for the IKE version. To select the Diffie-Hellman DH group, click on Group 2-1024-bit. Although there are different encryption levels, select Triple Des. Use SHA-1 as the authentication method to connect the VPN and set the SA lifetime for Phase 1 to 86,400. For Phase 2, select ESP for the protocol selection and Triple Des for the encryption. Next, use SHA-1 as the authentication method and set the SA lifetime to 28,800. Disable perfect forward secrecy. These encryption levels were selected because they are compatible with Microsoft's built-in VPN. To see a list of recommended settings, check out this site. Keep in mind that Cisco does not support these third-party sites. They are shown for your reference. If you change any of these settings, the VPN will fail to connect, and nobody wants that. To keep moving along, you will need to create a user group that contains the clients that will establish a client-to-site VPN connection. After creating a group, create user accounts for each member. Add the newly created group to this account. The number of accounts is based on the number of users. A unique username and password are required for each user to use the VPN. Additionally, ensure that the service auth sequence for Lttp is configured. Notice that the primary authentication method for Lttp is automatically set to radius in the server auth sequence. Change that to the local database. For the secondary, choose radius. Here, the router will not accept the none option. The local database should be set as the primary, which is where the VPN client authentications will be sent to. Now, verify the changes were applied to the service auth sequence for the Lttp server. Once confirmed, you can move on to the configuration of the Lttp VPN. To enable the Lttp server, select the On checkbox. The IP address is essential. This IP pool range must be distinct from the client and router networks. This will be added to the IP group later, as it is the network for the VPN. Add a DNS server LAN IP address of the router and then a second DNS server address of 8.8.8.8. This is a well-known Google server. Make sure to add the Lttp group you previously created. To activate the Ipsec profile, select the profile that was just created and input a secure pre-shared key. Click Apply to save your changes. To create the client's site, use the built-in VPN in Windows. Start by selecting Add and provide a name for the connection. The server's name or address will be your remote router's public IP address assigned on the WAN interface. Additionally, you can specify an FQDN if you have one. Select Lttp with a pre-shared key as the VPN type. Afterward, enter the pre-shared key configured earlier click Save. Select the newly created adapter. Click on Properties, then Security. Make sure that these protocols are allowed. If you choose Microsoft Chat version 2, the VPN will not be able to connect, so choose PAP, click on it, and then click OK. Great, the basic setup on that end is complete. Moving on, you need to create the site-to-site VPN between the home network and the RV34W network. Therefore, you need to create local groups and give them a name. It's important to know your local network, as well as the network of your Lttp, as both these networks will be added to the IP group. Choose an IP address subnet so that all addresses in that subnet are accessible via the site-to-site VPN. To begin, enter the address of the home router. In this example, 192.168.1.0/24. This enables the VPN to connect to all IP addresses in the 192.168.1.0 network. You can also specify an IP address if you want to allow only one IP address to connect to the VPN, or even an IP address range. In this example, the type is subnet. The device type and the operating system type will be any. Next, add the subnet of the VPN, in this case 10.25.25.0/24. This is the subnet for the Lttp VPN that was just created. These options allow all IP addresses in that subnet to connect to the VPN. To save the IP group settings, click Apply. Great, that part is set. Moving on, it's time to configure the site-to-site VPN. To begin, go to the Site-to-Site VPN menu and select Add. Check the box next to add, edit a new connection. Enter the connection name and choose the default IPsec profile. If there is already a custom profile, select it. What matters here is that both ends of the VPN, the home network and the RV34W network, use the same IPsec profile. Then choose the interface with an internet connection. That would be WAN 1 in this case. The remote endpoint will be assigned a static IP address. Thereafter, enter the pre-shared key. Although it isn't recommended, you can disable the minimum pre-shared key complexity if you choose. Select a specific IP address as the local identifier type. To keep this simple and secure, choose Local FQDN. The local identifier can be anything, but it must contain a dot. I'll keep my local identifier as router.vpn for simplicity. Then, as the local IP type, select the IP group defined earlier. This determines which local networks can connect to the VPN. In this instance, 192.168.1.0 is the network address of my local router. Additionally, the Lttp VPN network, 10.25.25.0, is included in this IP group. Next, choose FQDN again for the remote identifier, an arbitrary name for simplicity. In this example, I'll use remote.vpn as the remote identifier. The remote IP type can be a single IP address, a subnet, or a set of IP addresses. This defines who will be permitted to connect to the VPN from a remote location. If I choose an IP address, I will only be able to define one. If I choose IP group, all devices in that IP group will be allowed regardless of their IP address. After that, select a subnet. This will allow you to connect to a VPN-enabled subnet. Enter the RV34W network's subnet and type in the subnet mask. Then, under Advanced Settings, enable both the Keep Alive and Dead Peer Detection options. Both of these options will aid in the maintenance of the VPN connection. If one side loses connectivity, the VPN should automatically attempt to re-establish the connection. Now that the home network router has been configured, you can configure the RV34W network. First, Create an IP address group and designate it as a remote group. This group will contain the remote networks that will be allowed through the VPN, including my home network. Following that, enter the 192.168.1.0 address and the 10.25.25.0 for the Lttp VPN IP subnet. Next, proceed to the VPN configuration. Here, you will want to ensure that the VPN is activated. Additionally, the IPsec profiles must match on both sides. Leave this as the default. The interface should be where your internet connection is. The remote endpoint should be the other end's static IP address or FQDN. Next, use the static IP address assigned to the home network. Then, enter the pre-shared key. This should be the same as what you specified in the other end for the router site-to-site configuration. Use the same options for the local group identifier as you did for the first site-to-site VPN. So choose local FQDN and name this remote.vpn. Notice here that remote.vpn was the remote identifier for the site-to-site VPN configured on the home network router. It has now been designated as the local identifier, and as a result, it is reversed. Connect to the same subnet that the RV34W network is on. In this case, the router's local group configuration should match the home network router's remote group. They are, once again, reversed. Configure the remote group setup next. This should correspond to the local group configured in the home network router. Select Remote FQDN as the remote identifier type and enter the remote identifier, router.vpn, followed by the IP group. This is the IP group that I've just created. After this, navigate to Advanced Settings and ensure that both Keep Alive and DPD are selected. As a result, I can now see my site-to-site VPN is connected. After that, try to ping from the client's site. Ping the home network first. Take note that the ping was successful here. Ping the RV34W network to continue. Ping is a success. From the client site, you can connect to both routers. As a result, the client now has access to both routers, the RV34W network router and the home network router. This is accomplished by connecting the client to the home network router via an Lttp VPN. Additionally, a site-to-site VPN connection was established between the home network router and the RV34W network router. Add the network of your Lttp VPN, as well as the local network, to the IP group. This granted site-to-site VPN access to the Lttp VPN client. The Lttp VPN client now has a connection to both the home network and the RV34W network. All set. Your clients can access both network resources while they work remotely. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.